Yeah, something. I know we're winding down and we got to coming to a close. But I've been told it is around that the government overdraft at the National Bank may well be over $100 million. If this is the case, does that surprise you, though? And
Well,
what are the implications of that kind of borrowing or overdraft?
well, I've had issues with government borrowing from the commercial bank for many. Well, two of the main reasons is that government borrowing has a very negative impact. We in economics we call that the crowding out effect. What I mean by that is that if government becomes a dominant borrower from a commercial bank, there's just so much the bank has to offer in terms of loans and so on. If government is taking a lion's share of that, then there is less money for the private sector. Okay, so you're effectively crowding out the private sector. Now, why is that important? That's important because monies that are borrowed by the private sector goes into productive uses. Because you know that if you're running a business, if you ain't making a profit for many years, you go out of business. To be able to stay in business, you have to make a profit, you have to sustain that business. So the monies that are borrowed by the private sector, it goes typically into productive uses. You employ people and you make things happen in the economy. With government, that is different. Very often, government borrows and is either on to do on wasteful spending or just to meet their monthly commitments, probably to cover some LPO or probably to pay wages. Is not adding as much as the private sector. So that is very important. Okay, that is one impact. And then the second thing that this government has done, and they have really taken advantage of the commercial bank, is that they have converted overdrafts into long-term loans.
Yes,
So
yes.
when the bank sets up its portfolio, it has a certain idea as to how it wants to remain profitable. So it breaks down its borrowing into loans and overdrafts. Overdrafts generally tend to have a different term, a different, I mean, in terms of the length of time that you can pay back. The interest rates are usually high and so on. All right, so then you're factoring that into your calculations. But when the government turns around and say, "Hey, I'm not going to pay this overdraft. You have to give me a loan. Convert that overdraft into a loan." You're putting the bank at a disadvantage. Okay. So the fact that they have already gone up $1 million, it means that that loan that was converted is now a long-term loan and a debt to government added to our stock of debt. And now they're incurring a lot more in overdraft. So at some point, the bank is going to say, hey, you have to stop this. And they're going to do the same thing. They're going to convert the overdraft. You see, those types of behavior, I believe, is consistent with what we have been talking about earlier. A government that appears to be increasingly desperate for resources, because it has failed at the basic level to grow the economy. Growing the economy covers a multitude of sins. If you can grow the economy, you put yourself in an extremely good place.
Position. Yes, yes.
But because they have not done that, you have this issue of overdraft. You have it jeopardizing the banking system, putting the banking system at risk. And